Hello and welcome back to Coffee and Kale. My name is Nicole and we are joined today by Rona Jobe. She is of LVLUp and Smart Settlements, and we are going to be talking about how to keep it all together as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. How do you manage all of the competing responsibilities? So if that sounds interesting, please keep watching. Rona, thank you. Thank you for joining me. So you wear multiple hats at senior levels of 2 organizations.
That's right.
How long have you been doing that?
Several years now.
Yeah.
I think I've always juggled multiple things, just about majority of my life, I want to say.
Yeah.
But specific to both Smart and LVLUp, it's been about 3.5 years that I've been kind of juggling both.
Okay. And we first became acquainted because of Smart Settlements.
Yes.
Which is a title company that we use here a lot and have used, and I have personally used in previous lifetimes many times over. But you are also the founder and purveyor and CEO of LVLUp.
Yeah.
Tell me more about LVLUp. What is that about?
LVLUp Strategies, for lack of a better explanation, is really a small consulting agency that focuses on growth.
Okay.
We work with 3 different types of clients. One is the solopreneur and trying to scale them up to be business owners. And the next step is small business owners trying to scale their business up into a company. So we work anywhere between a person, a solopreneur with about $250,000 in revenue, all the way to a small business trying to move into a solid larger company with about 100 mil probably in revenue. So it's a wide range. It really depends on what is needed.
Yeah. Okay. So let's focus on that solopreneur today, right? So we have a person who's an entrepreneur, has gained some level of recognition, either as a real estate professional because this is real estate and finance focused, or some other version of I have been running myself for a while. And they're looking to take that next step, whether that means hiring people or professionalizing, for lack of a better word, their business and their business operations. What's like the first couple steps someone should take when they're thinking about going from something they've been doing on their own to something where they need help in some way, shape, or form?
That's a great question, and I get that question a lot.
Yeah.
You could probably guess it's the number one question on people's minds sometimes when they're trying to move from a 1-person team to a 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. I think the biggest thing is just trying to imagine yourself, what would your lifestyle look like in 2 to 3 years if you were to grow this team.
Okay.
What I have, good and bad sides, so good and bad. I've had folks, come and build their team, and then 2 to 3 people in, they're like, yeah, I think I enjoy being a solopreneur more than actually managing and leading people.
Okay.
And some folks, go to 2 to 3 people, larger teams, and they're like, oh yeah, I can build this out even more.
Okay.
I enjoy this aspect of it more so than that aspect of, than the actual in the business rather than like on the business.
On the business, okay.
Yeah, so I think it's trying to figure out what it is that you would actually like to do. So it's really knowing yourself. I recommend a lot of folks work with a coach because it's almost like therapy but for business, right? Because you're trying to figure out, what am I going to be good at? What are my skills? I'm great at doing real estate deals, but am I great at teaching others how to be great at doing real estate deals? And if you are, does that feed my soul or is it draining for me? And it takes time and practice to actually do that. And I say, if 2 years in, you're going for this big goal and you decide it's not for you, perfectly fine to it's going to look a little bit different. Let's either scale it back or just pivot and reposition.
And I imagine that's where the coach comes in.
I think so.
You go down a path and find that's maybe not the path you want to go down.
It is. If you are able to access or have connection to a great coach, they're going to help you not just refine and figure out what it is that you would like to do long term, but also what is fulfilling for you long term. I think that's the biggest piece. I almost always recommend people to work with a coach first before coming to work with us, because we focus on scaling you up. And a lot of times, if you're not ready to be scaled up, you're going to fight back. Every fiber of you is going to fight back. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that.
I see.
And it makes it a lot harder, and it makes it a lot less efficient to work with, a business consultant or a consulting firm to scale you up. Because you're not just fighting your day-to-day tendencies on building a system, you're also fighting sort of your inner person because you don't want to do this. So you really have to know that you do want to do this.
Okay, so coach first, then business strategist.
Yes.
Okay, so as this episode goes live, we'll be at the quarter break. At a quarter break between, first, second, third quarter in the year. What do you recommend that folks that have decided, okay, I want to scale up, I want to have more people or in some way grow bigger? What do you recommend people look at when they're preparing themselves for that next quarter's goal setting, or what do you recommend there?
I would recommend, first and foremost, always tie them to your long-term goals.
Okay.
I think people tend to look at their quarter goals or even their monthly goals without really first aligning them to what their goals look like in a year. So take a look at what your 5-year goal looks like, your 3-year goal, your 1-year goal, and then break it down into a quarter. Because I always give this analogy. You don't want to start driving heading towards California when your destination is supposed to be Florida, because you're going to be, doing a lot of backtracking, a lot of turning back.
Something you said to me when we were preparing for this episode was people also don't take household and business commitments into consideration.
Yes.
Talk a little bit more about that. I left that planning conversation with personal coaching points to say, I really need to look at that more. So what do you recommend when people are finding they have competing priorities?
I think it's to marry all of your priorities and to take a look at them from a holistic standpoint rather than going, this is my business goal, these are my business goals, my quarterly goals, and then this is my personal goal.
Okay.
Because especially if you're a parent, which I am, a lot of my clients are also, a lot of folks in real estate that do business at Smart are also parents. Some of them solopreneurs, some of them with teams. They have both family life and personal life and also business life, and for you to treat them completely separate, I think does yourself a disservice, and it's a perfect recipe to run yourself to the ground. So I say taking into consideration, for example, you've got this great goal that you want to pursue in terms of business, but you also know that you've got 3 kids in travel soccer that you have to drive, and you hadn't made a plan for how that's going to happen.
It's tournament season, and there are more games than normal. Okay.
Yeah, so just kind of being a little bit more realistic. The thing with goals is you want to aim high, but just a little bit beyond what's realistic to really push you there.
Okay.
Not a goal that is, here's a difference between a good goal and a sort of mediocre goal.
Okay.
Don't say that my goal is this because I will naturally get there. A goal should be, this is my goal because it's going to take me time, focus, and energy to get there.
Okay.
If you're driving, 50 miles an hour, you do the math, you're going to get to 50 miles in 1 hour, right? Yeah. That's just going to naturally happen.
I see.
But if you're going, okay, I'm actually trying to reach 55 miles in 1 hour, and I normally run 50 miles an hour, you're going to have to pick pockets of that 1 hour where you're going to be a little bit faster than 50 miles an hour so that you can get to 55 miles. I'm doing a lot of driving.
Yeah. Are you taking a road trip soon?
No. My son is going through driver's ed, so maybe that's why.
16, 15?
15. So he'll be ready to drive.
Do you have one of those stickers on the back that says
not yet,
learning?
Not yet. He's still doing just not behind the wheel yet, just the regular paper driver's ed. So
please take notes so that when my now 10-year-old is 15, I can say, okay, what did you do when you woke up in the middle of the night and she slept?
I think as parents, we forget a lot of what the actual pain is, and I'll try to take notes, but we'll see. Ask me again, and
I'll ask you periodically. Yeah. Because how old are the other ones? You have a couple coming behind him. Right?
Yeah. They're about 3.5 years apart each. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so might still be fresh in my mind. We'll see.
We'll see.
Anyway, that's where the driving analogies are coming in.
No, I appreciate it because it helps us paint a picture for, you have to, can I call them stretch goals? Is that fair or is that, okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's say we have that person real estate agent, I keep using that example, or solopreneur, I like that term, who has done well. They've been working, well, first, how long would any one business or entity work with you in LVLUp? How does that look?
It varies. We've worked with clients that are 3 months long. We've worked with, I think that's probably the minimum that we've worked with folks is 3 months long to get them kind of moving into their goals. Others with larger goals and sort of the larger small businesses, probably a few years, 3 to 4 years, it could be 5 years. At some point, a business is going to be able to afford, or really it makes a lot more sense for them to have an internal corporate strategy team. And that's when they will start to sort of create their own path. Ideally, we would love to grow with a business that we're working with every step of the way, getting them to the next level every single time. One of the clients that we work with, we are sort of their special projects department, special projects / strategy / corporate strategy.
So is it like a call by the drink? Like
not quite. We run it a little bit, but we run it through that quarterly planning format. It's like, what's the focus for this quarter? Let's go after that. Let's consider the multiple departments that are working towards this goal and what they have to actually put in towards this goal. And let's take a look at their workload, this month, next month, and 3 months from now, so that we can properly align them into this goal. Because a lot of times executives will have a goal in mind, but it's so hard for them to corral, so many different departments, especially if you're trying to go from, a 50-person team to a 200-person team. It gets a little bit more difficult. So that's where LVLUp really comes in, is we're sort of like your special projects corporate strategy department that's really stitching everything together, getting it handled, making sure that we're the ones looking at that very specific goal.
Now, what mistakes do you see people make repeatedly when they are in this cycle? So from a 3-month to 5-year tenure with any one company. Do you see things that stick out a lot, that folks make the same mistake over and over?
I do. And it's time. It's the way that they look at their time as an entrepreneur. It's the way that they classify their time as an entrepreneur, and the way that they record their time as an entrepreneur. I have looked at many P&Ls and profit and loss statements in many companies, and even solopreneurs, and I'll ask them, what's your true profit margin? What's your what is your what are your variable costs versus your fixed costs? And the one thing that I always see is they never classify their time working in the business as an actual cost.
That's revolutionary. I don't think I would have thought of that. So you mean like assign a dollar amount per hour?
Absolutely.
Or
the reason why is the goal for this is for you to at some point hire somebody to sit in the things that you do that's client facing. When you're building from a solopreneur to a small business, at some point you're going to be a company and you need to act like a CEO. What is a CEO? Chief Executive Officer. You're managing other executives, meaning that you're going to have to hire folks in your business, and you're going to have to grow them into executives in your business. A lot of people don't think about hiring and building and grooming executives in their company because they cannot think of hiring and leading executives. I recently had lunch with a real estate agent this past week, and one of the really revolutionizing things that he said to me was, it's funny, a lot of real estate agents call themselves CEOs. This might be a little controversial.
No, please.
They call themselves CEOs, but who are the executives that they're managing? Because by definition, a CEO manages other executives. Is your virtual assistant an executive? No. Is your buyer's agent an executive? Maybe not yet, but maybe potentially in the future. So I thought that the way that he had described that, it really tied into how I've looked at other, business owners and how they treat their time and in terms of their business. And I ask a lot of times about, what about your administrative time that's going into your business? because that is one role and one seat that you could easily hire for and grow your company that way.
So how do you recommend people quantify that in their profit and loss? Is it an actual line item?
It will be. It should be an actual line item. They should be paying themselves as an employee, because the goal of somebody who is going to be a CEO someday is to make sure that the work that's being done for the business is going to be hired out and captured. And how can you hire when you don't know how much that actually costs? I can tell you, when my team goes for an RFP with the government, it takes us this many hours. And I know on average, we pay people this many hours. Meaning that when I'm about to go for a solicitation that goes out there, I know exactly the dollar amount of the investment that's gonna go in, because we've classified the time.
I see.
It's the same thing in title. A lot of title companies don't actually know what the dollar amount is. It's tied to every single deal, because they don't know the amount of hours to go into every single deal.
I know the deals with me are probably more expensive because I call. Do we know how to, if you're paying by the hour for mine, I probably need to control my costs better. So to switch a little bit, it sounds like you have grown LVLUp from a solopreneur business to something larger than that now.
It's actually never been a solopreneur business.
Oh, it never was?
No,
okay.
It never was. So with LVLUp, when we first got our first client, hired a first person. I knew long term that we were not going to grow LVLUp as a solopreneur business. So first client, one person hired, and it's always been that way.
Vision.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to ask, what have you learned as an individual sitting in the CEO seat, growing LVLUp from where it started to where it is now? If you could have known one thing back then that you know now after the years of experience, what would it be?
I think it would be that when you build a business, you really have to get comfortable with not just knowing yourself and your leadership style, which, I knew from a clinical standpoint, from kind of a theoretical standpoint, but it's really hard to put into practice, because you have to take into consideration other people's leadership styles, and that it is not your leadership style, and you're going to have to learn how to lead people with different leadership styles than you. And we have, it's not, our guiding principle at LVLUp is progress, right? We're looking for progress, not perfection. So a lot of times when small business owners build businesses, they hire people and they build their business and their practices around their brand so much, around their own personality and the way they do business, that everybody
their hours.
Their hours. Every time somebody comes on, it's always like, what would you do? What would Nicole do? What would Rona do? Whereas you really should build it around a core set of principles that works and is aligned with the people's principles that you're hiring, because then they'll bring their own creativity. Now, from a theoretical standpoint, I knew this because we practice this at Smart Settlements. But when rubber actually hits the road, it's really hard, and there's a lot of emotions involved when you're managing other folks as well, and there's a lot of personality that is in there. I have been really lucky. Our whole team, I feel like, has been pretty lucky at LVLUp, in that we've done a great job of bringing on people that really align with the values, and it's hard to do that if you've never outlined your values as a
I would imagine it would help with hiring too. Like if you have a core set of values, you know what you're looking for when you go to grow, so you can, tailor who you bring on as well.
Absolutely. And we do this at home too. We do this with our family. I don't know if you've ever noticed that.
What do you mean?
Like when you have difficult times with your kids, sometimes my kids will complain about something is hard, and you go, nope, it's okay, because we can do hard things. These are our core family values. The Jobes don't quit. The Jobes are resilient. Like we have core values inside our home that we not necessarily say out loud all the time, but in the way that we practice, in the way that we parent, in the way that we expect our kids to show up for school, for sports, we have our own core values, and everybody pushes towards that.
That's fair.
You have to do that in a company as well, because everybody has to be aligned in sets of values. And unlike a family where you're day in, your day out, you're in the same household, they're seeing you move, you have to actually verbalize that.
That's right.
In a company.
That's right. Yeah. In home hours is we do hard things until they become easy.
Yeah.
We have to just keep going.
That.
You got to keep pressing through. So from a smart settlements perspective, because we've talked a lot about level up, I, as on the consumer end of smart settlements, is you guys do a great job of putting one voice, one face to the outside. What does that look like on the inside? Do you have strategy meetings that say, okay, smart settlements is going to be this kind of business in the world, or we're going to have this kind of posture? How do you come up with that? Or I'm sure it didn't just happen by accident.
No, I mean, a little bit of it is that the partners really mesh well.
Okay.
And we are not just colleagues, but we're also friends outside of work, so it really helps. Okay. And it also helps that the way that we work and train our people, meaning from the processors, post-closers, underwriters,
are all fabulous. If you guys are watching, you're fabulous. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I love it.
Fabulous.
We do a lot of work with training. We do a lot of work in terms of refining processes. Every time we're getting a complaint, there's always a question that we ask ourselves. I mean, it goes up, it goes up through the ranks, so to speak. Like, okay, did we drop the ball? Is there something that should have been in our system to catch this? Should there have been something in our system to catch this? Because sometimes it's user error, sometimes it's a one-off, like sometimes there's other reasons behind it, but we really ask ourselves, okay, do we need to do something moving forward that's going to fix this little kink in the system?
Okay.
And that's just a work of refinement. If you're building a company and you need processes and systems in place, which everybody does, it never stops after the process has been built and the SOPs have been outlined. There's a constant refining for you to get better at your craft.
You're working on your business. Okay. Well, you guys do a great job, because from the outside looking in, it's like a well-oiled machine.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I've also heard you get a lot of insight from complaints. So if you hear the complaint and you're following up on it. So for those of you out there building something, don't just ignore the complaints, I would say. What have we missed that you would like for our audience to know about building, growing, or leveling up their business? What takeaway would you like for folks to have?
The one takeaway, we've talked a lot about strategies, about mindset, is you also have to take into account the phase in your life, the season of your life that you're in. I think we see so many influencers on Instagram, on social media, really going after it, like living this life of hustle and work and all of this, that we forget those folks are in a very specific season in their life. And it's not the same season as everybody. People go through seasons. I remember when I first started at Smart Settlements, and Carlos, would always say, hey, maybe try to wake up at this time, and he wasn't saying it to be critical or anything. He was saying, hey, maybe here's an idea, how about this idea? He's big on waking up early, as a lot of our colleagues, but I didn't actually apply that until 5 years later, maybe 4 years later, because at the time I had an 18-month-old at home. There's no way I'm getting up at 4 in the morning.
No, and if they just went to sleep at 1 or whatever.
Yeah. So, and that was really a big lesson for me, in that there's seasons in your life. Acknowledge them. Be kind to yourself in acknowledging them. That said, when you come out of that season, be ready. Be ready for that growth. Be ready to go after it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing your advice with us. So the name of this podcast is Coffee and Kale, because those are the two things that keep me going. Coffee at some point, kale at some other point during the day. What about you? A couple things that keep you putting one foot in front of the other, keep charging up the hill.
Well, coffee for sure.
Yes. You're the first person to sit in that seat and say coffee. Okay, thank you. Kindred spirit.
Coffee for sure.
Yes.
First thing in the morning. A little bit of Peloton.
Yes. Again. Yes. Okay.
And really taking some time to have my quiet moments in the week, to plan for the day, for the week, and really hear myself think. Even if it's just for 10 minutes in a day, I love just sitting there and going through what I have for the day, for the next day, for the next week. Every single night before I go to bed, I look at my calendar for the next day and I go, what do I have? Get myself in that mindset for the next day. What it is that I need to do? When do I need to wake up? When do I need to be here? And I start to kind of visualize what I need to do for the next day so that I can have a good night's sleep.
Yeah, and not have that on your mind. Well, thank you. Thank you for spending your time with us here today. Thank you all for coming and watching Coffee and Kale. And don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. See you next time. Bye-bye.